You're welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I am Christian Ogodo. Thanks for joining us, staying with us. Latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, shows that 40% of Nigerians, about 83 million people, live in poverty. Figures published by the Statistics Office has shown. The report on poverty and inequality from September 2018 to October 2019 said that 40% live below a poverty line of 137,430 naira per year. In other words, an average 4 out of 10 individuals in Nigeria has real per capita expenditures below the amount. The highest poverty levels are in Sokoto, where 87.7% of the people there live under the poverty line, compared with 4.5% in Lagos State, which has the lowest rate. And according to the NBS, 52% of people in rural areas live in poverty, compared with 18% in the urban parts of the country. For safety reasons, the statistics did not include Borno, which has been worst hit by 10 years of Boko Haram insurgency. That is, of course, quite understandable. And for more analysis on this and to crack this data, let's turn to Paul Alaje, as a Senior Economist with SPM Professionals. Thanks for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, let me ask the first question. Why did the NBS say that we should treat this latest report as a base study, instead of comparing it with previous poverty studies, and that it should be treated with caution?
When you see the population growth that we have now, population has grown beyond what it was. And also, when you see the numbers we have, it has also reflected a whole lot of difference and a lot of change from what it was in the previous period even till now. So the large number that we have, about 82.9 million people, it's very significant. And at any time, statistician may choose what will be their base year. So it's not an offense, it's not any error. They don't have to compare it to see it was more last year or it is more this year. And from study we've done over and over again, we've noticed that National Bureau of Statistics don't actually carry out year-on-year reports on poverty, because it's a lot of money to spend to carry that out on annual basis. So I think we should just look at it. And for me, now we need to look at this with a lot of caution. If you say we have 82.9 million Nigerians, approximately 83 million Nigerians, living below $1.90 a day, either they are earning lower than that, or they are spending lower than that, or the quality of life they have is lower than that. What it means is the entire Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC Congo, which is exactly the population, as at the time they observe, unfortunately, it means that the entire Democratic Republic of Congo in Nigeria, nobody could earn above above $1.90 at the time that this was evaluated. So is this number increasing? Of course.
It's quite frightening.
It's scary. It's scary, not frightening, just frightening. It's scary. It's scary because when you look at large cities, such as the city of Kano, with religious house to population, one religious house to 40 people, industry, one industry to 300,000 people, where do people get job? In religious organization, or in a factory or a company? So what we preach more, what we embrace more. So when you go to Lagos, the reverse is the case. You have religious houses, but there are more businesses.
But with a port city, I mean, you should expect the obvious, that the economy, anywhere there is a port, so the economy there booms.
How do you explain Osun State? It's not a port city. It's not the closest to Lagos. But poverty rate, according to this report, is much lower compared to states like Kano State, with large population, huge
Sokoto
poverty.
is the poorest state in Nigeria, and probably if Nigeria tops the chart of the poorest amongst, in the world, then Sokoto definitely will be the poorest community or state in the whole of the world.
Well, I don't know if you have been at Sokoto before. I've gone for TED Talks in Sokoto, in Arkila, in Sokoto. So when I got the report, in fact, I was in Arkila about the time this research was conducted and for the period which was mentioned. And of course, it's not like I spoke on how to move Africa from poverty to prosperity. And I was talking to the elite in Sokoto as at that time. And so one of the things I mentioned perhaps is the results is what is being published at this time. When you look at people total number of people that have access to toilets in Sokoto State, and you have total number of people that have access to power supply, and total number of people that use either cooking gas or say stove to cook, it is very, very, very small. Particularly when you look at the majority part of Sokoto in the rural community, they are really, really very small. And of course, culture and religion play a major significant role to keep our people in poverty. Religion is very good. It's also good we protect our culture. But when this culture and religion will keep us in abject poverty, I think we need to think twice.
Some people may want you to expatiate on that, but let's leave that. But is it any surprise that the poverty rate by the NBS statistics shows that 52% of this poverty index, they are from the rural areas, with only about 18% in urban centers?
Well, I'm not surprised because rural poor is more than urban poor. Rural poor is more because they don't have access to power supply, they don't have access to good road. The predominant job in rural area is farming and say agriculture, so to speak.
Which is usually subsistence,
which
not
is subsistence
commercial.
to a large extent.
Yeah.
So with their harvest, how easy are they able to bring down to urban center? So you have middlemen. Middlemen will go through distress and reap them off their profit most of the time. So what state and local government should do, because this is not just responsibility of federal government, what state government and local government should do is to make these infrastructure available to the people. So when you now look at agriculture in Sokoto State, a place that is encroached, part of that state have been encroached by Sahara Desert. We have extension into that state. So how do farmers in such areas plant? I was expecting several governors of Sokoto State to have started reclaiming the areas from Sahara Desert encroachment, but have not seen a lot of that happening
the Green Belt
in the
Revolution.
Exactly, the Great Green Wall has been recommended to Nigeria for a long time, not just in Sokoto, even in the southern part of Lagos and Port Harcourt. We've not done the same in those two regions. So will the number increase? I think it may increase, especially with the pandemic, particularly the urban poor would increase. So in urban area of Lagos, of Port Harcourt, where people necessarily may not do decent job, but definitely they earn more than what their rural counterparts are earning. So now when we say that people are living and they are just 40%, it does not mean that the remaining 59.9% Nigeria are living in prosperity. That's not what it means. It means that there are people who are living below poverty line. There are people that are living on or above poverty line. Of course, there are people who are living sufficiently. So significant part of Nigeria are living majorly below poverty line, and some are living just above poverty line. Of course, very few proportion are living rich, in spite of our crude oil revenue that of course we have generated at that period before the major fall we have now in crude oil prices. In spite of all of those in that region, it has not reflected on individualized on 82.9 million Nigerians as of that time.
That's quite, what you say is scary, but that's not a good statistics, for government, particularly when it says that it's been striving to take 2.6 million Nigerians out of poverty, that it's going to take 10 million Nigerians every year out of poverty. Then there's a lot of question mark on what government has really been doing, because this is just a statistics released about 24 hours ago.
Well, we've heard what government wants to do, which is to take 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years, which is to take 10 million people out of poverty every year. But what we have not seen is the strategy of government. There has not been a particular change in strategy.
They've been giving the people money. They've been giving people, traders money.
So show me one country that have lifted people out of poverty by giving them money. I can show you China. I've lifted 400 million people out of poverty in 2 decades, which is 20 years. So approximately 20 million people every year being lifted out of poverty. I can also show you India, a country that was the poorest country at a time in terms of head count, now handed over the baton of poverty to Nigeria. Nigeria continued to do the same thing, expecting different results, but India, I beg your pardon, have adopted a different strategy. Understanding that what leads people out of poverty is not for them to continue in subsistence farming or in wishful thinking or over-religious activity. India is a religious country, same as China. But these two countries, they are the largest two most populous nations in the world, but they are not the poorest in the world. They are the most populous country in their continent. The two of them where they are found, they are the two largest in the continent. But of course, they are not the poorest. That means something is wrong with the strategy Nigeria is adopting. So what is the strategy they have adopted? China understood that the next powerful person in the world will not be the person that can shoot the fastest arrow. It will be the person that the old world will depend on importation. That is why perhaps coronavirus have been exported to the rest of the world. And that's just by the way. So this is the point. What will Nigeria do in terms of getting our population to be more active in terms of production? That is the real question we should ask. It is not sufficient for us to have those who carry bowls on the street of Sokoto to the street of Kano and Katsina and looking for somebody to help them, believing that God will feed them, that we continue to improve population approximately 2.8 to 3%, while economy is growing at the rate of 2.2%. There is no miracle, there is no surprise about it. We have consistently committed economic sins, and we are asking for Almighty to forgive us of our economic sins. I doubt if that will continue, because we cannot continue in economic sin and say grace will abound. It will not happen. We need to do the needful by adopting strategy of production. China left natural, which of course is primary, agriculture and so on, to go into production. I hope that Nigeria will do the same in the coming period.
Religiosity and the economic mix there. But let's take a break and we'll continue to interrogate it when we return. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us, and you're back to the Arise interview with me, Christian Obodo. We're live in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. I say have the economist, Paul Alaje here. Paul, I just want to bring you to about 30 years ago during the military regime of ex-president Ibrahim Babangida. The People's Bank was supposed to be one of the finest interventionist agency to help people out of poverty, to help traders, to help the subsistent farmer to grow bigger, to help the small entrepreneur, whether in the manufacture of cane chairs or artifacts and the rest. And it looks as if the various intervention agencies that we have today can't even take us out of this poverty, and we're still reeling in those times 30 years after.
Absolutely, because there's something economics call marginal propensity to import. The tendencies that what we have around us today, and those viewing us at home, the television with which they view us, 9 out of 10 television are imported. The clothes they put on, 9 out of 10 of those materials, particularly people viewing us today, even though they may be sold in Nigeria.
There was a time Nigeria even had the assembly plants for Sanyo, Philips, exactly. Jota, Lagos there.
But not anymore. Where are they today? Kaduna used to be the pride of the entire West Africa, but it's a shadow of itself right now. With its
Peugeot automobile, but yes, I know they're
and
back.
Also in textile. Kaduna was
yes.
#1 in the entire West Africa, stronger than Lagos and Edo State together. Kaduna was the biggest. So what we have now is a shadow of itself. You only see protests happening for people that still want to end their arrears and people that work and have not been paid. That's what you see. That's what is left of that factory that used to be the pride of the entire region. Now, this is it. So when we earn money in Nigeria, most of our income is spent to buy imported products. So the people you are helping locally with genuine interest from government, unfortunately, because they cannot compete with their counterparts abroad and demand, which is the most important thing. The most important thing in business, whether you are collecting loan or it's equity, is demand. Where is demand coming from? Demand and taste of Nigerian is towards foreign products. So foreign products will compete better and faster than Nigerian product. There is no amount of money you give to them. If they are not selling, I'm afraid they will not be able to pay back. Apart from other issues that those banks have, management issues, and other regulatory issues that those banks have. But fundamental, another major fundamental issue is the demand side and rate as a dentual, and some malpractices that happen in that decade, which I don't want to really go into. So that we have a major impact on ability of those intervention
to grow the economy.
To grow the economy. The same thing with what we have now. What we have now is, let me paint the top 5 banks in Nigeria. Top 5 banks right now. They are supporting people. Government have said, in fact, one of the banks had paid for violating CBN rule of CRR, cash reserve requirement, not so long. So where is the money banks have? According to the central bank, 6,125 billion naira have been given out to oil and gas as at third quarter 2019.
And they've not been able to pay
They've
back.
not been able to pay. It's not just that they've not been able to pay, even when there was relative boom in 2017, 2018, 2019. That's not just it. The major challenge now is that we are even selling below the cost price to Nigeria. So 24% of loan given out is already under non-performing loan. So banks will not be able to service other sectors because the golden egg, they feel the golden chicken, the chicken that lays the golden egg, I beg your pardon, they feel they will keep servicing and they will get free money, is sick, which is oil and gas. Nigeria revenue is also sick because of oil and gas. So what we get as economy is not real economy. What we have is rent-sinking economy. So when you want rent-seeking economy and there is a major problem that affects everybody, I'm afraid, we will not be able to go so far. So the intervention is not going to come because banks' faith is on oil and gas, and when oil and gas coughs, everybody in finance sector, when it sneezes, everybody in finance sector which can't go. So that is what top 5 banks.
That's another COVID-19, the financial and economic sector.
Exactly.
But let me ask you this: some economists and financial experts are even linking debt servicing to this poverty index and the rest. Would you want to expatiate on that?
It is very correct, because Nigerian government was to spend above 2 trillion naira to service debt, not to pay back debt. So 2019 budget was approximately 10 trillion naira. 2 trillion naira, above 2 trillion naira of that money was to be used to service debt. Watch this. Before COVID-19 showed up, Nigeria was to generate above 2 trillion naira from crude oil. So we are not getting back above 2 trillion naira from crude oil because of what happened to us as an economy. So what we are hoping to do is to now borrow more money. So we will now have exposure. We will now be borrowing approximately 5 trillion naira, and we expect very little to come from crude oil. What it means is that in the next 2-3 years, because recession that most part of the world is faced with is imminent, and of course Nigeria may be in it for a while, say till second quarter 2021, how do we get money to service our debt? Of course, there is a lot of impact. The debt profile is close to about 30 trillion naira with the new borrowings that we have now. It's close to 30 trillion naira, and the servicing of that debt is already having major impact on our budget, not just for federal government or state government. I give you an example of one of the state government that we have today. A state government IGR to debt service, a state in Southwest, is over 2,000%, not 200%, over 2,000%. So the state, after paying salaries and
has nothing
paying
for
overhead,
development.
has nothing. So people wonder,
not creating new jobs.
It's not possible.
But let me ask you, these are some of the things some people are worried about. Does Nigeria need a two-tier forex window, for example? Where in the world is the central bank, funds the black market?
Well, I think it's high time we stop that. And I can tell you because the nature, again, it goes back to culture and belief and what we have held on to over time. We will keep running into problem if we don't create a tier two, a second tier window for forex, import export, create something entirely different but formal. Because as we speak, those guys in that sector can decide to put us to ransom. It's almost happened. You could see what exchange rate is saying. So CBN
but it's happening.
It's happening now. CBN has to intervene in SMEs, in paying school fees, and so on and so forth. But when we make the market to be almost regular, almost predictable and formal, to a large extent, we can conquer those who are playing dirty within that sector. But if you don't do that, I'm afraid we may still have more in the coming period. You saw what we experienced in 2015 actually, to 2017, before major intervention and major devaluation. And if central bank don't do the needful now, I'm afraid Naira may still be further devalued beyond $380, 80 Naira a dollar.
That's the official rate.
That's the
because
official rate.
It's gone to as much as 440, 450.
Exactly.
It came down to 442. Now, so maybe before the end of the year, if the economy is not short up, we might be having 1,000 Naira to a dollar.
Well, I don't think it may be up to $1,000 a dollar. I strongly believe that we can still intervene if central bank will do the needful. But central bank does also have limitless amount of USD. It's a function of what we generate in revenue, majorly from crude oil and other export, what Nigerian diaspora are willing to give back to the country, and finally what we borrowed as hard currency to the country.
Thanks so very much. No better place to land than that. Paul Alaje is an economist and a financial expert.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Well, that's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Do remember to join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, it's goodbye and thanks for watching.